All right, Tenno. Today is a good day to sit down with a bowl of popcorn, a snack, your breakfast, whatever it may be, because I've been saving some fashion frame stuff for a rainy day. I unfortunately haven't really played Warframe in the past week because No Man's Sky has absolutely taken over all of my gaming time. I haven't been that addicted to a sandbox experience in a very long time, so I've kind of gone all in with it. But I know fashion frame is obviously a huge part of the Warframe experience. You don't have to be a vet to realize just how much fun it is to just make the different frames look exactly how you want them to look, right? And everybody kind of has their own personal preference for color palettes and attachments and different skins, and it's just something people get lost in. So I wanted to share today two of my favorite fashion frames. I think two fashion frames that I've spent the most time on sort of building an ideology for. I like to kind of role play my fashion frames a little bit and be like, here is why this character looks like this. And sometimes I like to put restrictions on myself and say I'm going to build a frame that is just done with one color palette. You know, rather than jumping across the color palettes, I'll do all Twilight. I'll do all this. You know, what's going to be my inspiration? I like to have a lot of fun. I mean, when you give me a palette that I can paint on, I'm going to try and take some inspiration from some places. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. It's not actually anything to do with good old Ash Prime here, although I could not resist this skin for Ash Prime, the Koga skin, because it's just, oh man, it's ridiculous. But no, we're actually going to start off with Excalibur, who is not my oldest frame. That is going to be the second frame we're going to look at today, but nonetheless one of my favorite frames in terms of visual styling. Now, for the longest time with Excalibur, I was just using the Proto Armor skin and doing sort of a Hayden Tenno cosplay type deal. And then recently I was just messing around and I took a look at one of the Tennogen Cyandanas I have, the Rapala, and was like, okay, you know, maybe we can build something with this, go a little bit further. And that was when I came across the Mordred helmet, and I was like, wow, this has kind of got like a knight look to it. You know, it almost looks like the front of a helmet, like in plate armor or something like that. And I was like, why don't we mess around with that? And so this is what I came up with. This is Sir Excalibur wielding his Galantine and his Lex Prime with that nice, almost blood wine soaked red cyandana to go with the touches of gold. The one thing that was unfortunate when I started building this one out was knowing that the attachments that I had, these shrink shoulder plates, they looked so perfect for this, like, you know, plate armor added on to the proto armor, but they don't shine really. Like, you can see the ridges kind of shine where we got the red, but the full plates themselves don't get the same metallic look that the proto armor does because they're not made of the same material. So I wanted them to kind of blend into the proto armor and have that metallic look, and I couldn't, man. That would be, if they somehow allowed us to have like gloss matte metallic in the future, pearlescent stuff like that on top of the color palette, oh man, people would be spending more time than they already do. But this is kind of what I came up with then, and like I said, it was all kind of revolving around the helmet. The Cyandana already has a very like noble knight look. It reminds me of something out of like Dragon's Dogma. If you guys played that RPG recently, they had a lot of really big flowing capes for the warriors, and I just really like it. I don't actually really run Galantine that much anymore, but one of the things I like to do, as I said, is to roleplay a little bit, and so this is kind of my idea for Sir Excalibur. He's got this big two-handed sword, but it's not too big that he can't be kind of deft and agile with it, and he carries that heavy-hitting Lex Prime hand cannon as his backup. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Excalibur, Sir Excalibur, as I have kit him out. And in case you want to see what he would look like originally, let's just do a flashback to good old naked Excal. Look at that guy. What's he even doing, man? Looks like he's trying to enter in a human racing contest, which is actually kind of fitting for Warframe, so maybe that's what he's going for. Anywho, let's go ahead and switch over to my very first Warframe. This is the Warframe that I chose when I first started playing the game way back in the day, Volt. But this is Cthulhu Volt. But this is what I refer to as Cthulhu Volt. Wow, for some reason I can't say that. Cthulhu Volt. Yeah, this is Cthulhu Volt. This is actually a Warframe that I just built this past weekend. I just like logged on to get some small things done, and I ended up fashion framing for like an hour and spending a bunch of time in Captura because I just do things like that. And I was like, man, I've got the Volt pulse helmet. It was like a drop one of these. I got the blueprint for it and I built it, and I'm just like, what can I do with that? You know, it's so creepy, it's so spooky. And I had bought the proto skin not that long ago because it just was, Volt was like my first frame. I barely play Volt. I don't even have any builds for Volt. I'm just not that far along. But I was like, I gotta give some love to one of my very first frames. And so I had the proto skin. I was like, the pulse helmet kind of adds a creepy HP Lovecraft vibe. And then I was like, well, we've got attachments that go down that sort of, you know, creepy realm. Let's run with it and see what we can come up with. And then let's go ahead and also lock ourselves into one color palette. So this is all using the Twilight color palette, which is right here. Didn't want to like steer from that. I was like, let's see what we can do with one palette. I like the deep purple, kind of has that HP Lovecraft feel with it, and let's run with it and see what we get. This is another cool skin because of the metallic elements that we get again on the interior there, and I think that's why I like the proto skin so much, is just you get that like metallic sheen, and it does cool stuff with colors. So while we have what is typically like a brown or beige, it comes across as this nice bronzy color, and it just looks badass, man. And I removed one of the left side shoulder pad off of the default Volt skin, and we kept the right one there. Just kind of give it a little bit of a stylistic choice, offset, you know, the skin design. It looks weird, but that's kind of what I liked about it, right? This helmet doesn't seem to match with like the sleekness of the bottom half of the proto skin, but that's why I dug it. You know, it just felt like none of it made sense. I mean, this proto skin in general is all over the place. You know, we've got like the spikes out of the shoulder. So like this is perfect for like a little HP Lovecraft inspired fashion frame going on here. And I'm actually really stoked on this. Like when I look at this, I'm like, this is the coolest my Volt's ever looked. This is like, it doesn't get better than this for Volt for me. So those are my two big ones, guys. I've got other fashion frame that we can do down the line. I actually really like the idea of maybe like a challenge series that I do maybe once a month, where you guys give me like a color palette. Maybe we restrict it to a certain set of attachments, or we say no attachments. I'll have to think on that more, and if I come back with a cool idea for something like that, you know, maybe we'll do that, and you guys can like vote on challenges, and then I'll come back to you and be like, this is what I came up with, these restrictions. Because I think that's the big thing, right? You have so many options. You know, if you're willing to spend the plat or to just acquire the stuff over time. So it's like kind of easy to come up with something cool, but if you start restricting yourself, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. I mean, the one palette thing, in a sense, to me, can already be pretty challenging, because like for the white on here, this like beigeish color, I probably would have went with like a darker, oozier color, you know, for the sort of HP Lovecraft side of it, you know, get more of a just kind of gooey, ooey vibe. But this works too, you know, so that was the point of the restriction there. I would love for you guys to hit me up over on Twitter with some of your fashion frames. I'd like to say this because I know a bunch of you probably want to share your stuff. Why don't we do for this week, since these are the two frames we featured, your Excalibur and your Volt fashion frame. So those two frames specifically, if you want to share some of your stuff with me over on Twitter, it's at Tony_Mo with an E. I'll have it on screen for you right now. You can head over there, just post it to me. I'd love to share that stuff with the little community I have over on Twitter, and I'd love to see what you guys have been working on with fashion frame. There's just like this ridiculous number of possibilities for what your frames can look like, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things about loading into a social space in Warframe and seeing just everyone looking slightly different, and, you know, gravitating towards, oh, what's that guy doing with that? Oh, look at that color, you know? It's one of the beautiful things about Warframe's customization. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep on fashion framing, and I will see you in the next one.
You have been brought here for a purpose, the most important task of your lives.